collect data and to analyze. And so he was literally keeping track of the performance of each young woman in the textile shop. And when a young woman turned age 15 or 16, a decision would get made. If the quantity and the quality of her work was very high, likely she would be apprenticed to a cook or a housemaid. If she didn't do such a great job, she's going to go in the ground and work in the fields for the rest of her life. So again, just like the exhibits over here, that textile shop, June 15th, that's when it opened. And if you haven't gone inside, they've sort of recreated what the textile shop looked like. So I highly recommend, if you haven't taken a look, to go ahead and check that out. Now on the ground, right over there, there's a little plaque that's sitting on the ground. And what that plaque says is, Servants' House O. And this is from the 1796 map that Jefferson draws up. So those are his exact words. Servants. That's an interesting choice of word. Jefferson, he often referred to slaves as servants. He sometimes called them family. But let's not us forget, they're enslaved. Their human rights have been taken away from them. And the slaves here at Monticello, just like slaves at any other plantation in Virginia at that time, they're living in fear of violence and of separation from their families. And I'm going to give you an example of this. Jefferson, he didn't just own Monticello. He had 7 plantations in Virginia. One of those other plantations is called Poplar Forest, and it's 90 miles from here in Lynchburg. Yeah. In those days, 90 miles, in good weather, it takes 3 days to travel 90 miles. And so Jefferson, he had slaves at Poplar Forest, including the Hubbard family. The Hubbards, they had a son. His name was James Hubbard. Everyone knew him as Jamie. When Jamie Hubbard is 11 years old, Jefferson decides he's going to be separated from his family, brought here to Monticello to work in the nail shop. 90 miles. It might as well be 900 miles, because Jamie Hubbard's not going to see his family anymore. Maybe at holiday time somebody gets a pass to visit for a day. Maybe not. And when Jamie Hubbard gets here, because Jefferson's record keeping is so meticulous, we can see exactly what happened. He goes to work in the nail shop and he has terrible productivity, very low productivity. And then over time, you can see, the productivity increases. And it increases so much that at some point Jefferson decides Jamie Hubbard will be taught to make charcoal. That was a really big deal here because they had so many forges to keep running. And so the way they made charcoal, they would cut huge quantities of wood, 30 cords of wood at a time. It's an enormous amount of wood. And what you have to do to make charcoal is you take that wood and you burn it very slowly with very little oxygen. You pile the wood up and then you put sod over it. You almost make like a kiln. But you have to watch the fires around the clock, because if the fire burns too hot, then you lose all the wood. You lose 30 cords of wood, that's a pretty big disaster. And so Jamie Hubbard, he makes fantastic charcoal, and so much so, and this is super unusual for Jefferson, he pays Jamie Hubbard tips, gratuities, for making this great charcoal. Now, Jamie Hubbard, he saves the money, and he buys a suit of clothes, the kind of clothes that a free black man would own. And then on this plantation, of course, Jefferson had many overseers, all those quarter farms here on the row. And so one day, an overseer's son says to Jamie Hubbard, "If you pay me, I'll forge you freedom papers." Jamie Hubbard, he couldn't read or write, so he's taking this on faith, but he pays the money, gets the papers, he slips away, and he walks 100 miles north to Washington. Very good choice, because there's a large free black population in Washington. Gets right to the outskirts of the city, and a police officer stops him, asks to see his papers. Jamie Hubbard hands the papers over. He didn't realize that these papers were of such low quality that it was obvious to the police officer they're not legitimate. And so Jamie Hubbard gets put in jail and he's questioned. Well, it comes out that he's from Monticello, and it's very embarrassing for Jefferson. Jefferson's serving as president at the time. And so quietly, Jamie Hubbard is transported back here to Monticello to go back to work. And years go by, and then Jamie Hubbard gets another opportunity to buy freedom papers. Now, they're not legitimate. He's not negotiating his freedom with Jefferson, but this is the thing. These papers were of much better quality, and so once again, he buys the papers. This time he walks 70 miles to the town of Lexington, Virginia, and he's living there as a free man for over a year. But Jefferson wanted him back. And so he advertised in the newspaper, runaway slave Jamie Hubbard, 6 foot tall, dark complexion, of daring demeanor, it says in the ad. But the thing that got everybody's attention, cash reward. You offer cash in those days, all sorts of people start looking. Sure enough, somebody finds Jamie Hubbard in Lexington, Virginia. He's brought back here, second time caught. This time, all the other slaves are gathered. They're made to watch as Jamie Hubbard is beaten. And then, on Jefferson's instructions, sold so far deep south he's never heard from again. This is issuing a death sentence. Jefferson would have known that. We have no documentation what happens to Jamie Hubbard when he leaves this plantation, but it's a pretty safe assumption he doesn't live long. On this tour, and sometimes when I give the house tours too, I get a very frequent question, and I want to address it, because I get asked the question so often. So many times somebody will raise a hand. Grace, was Jefferson a good slave owner? Stop there. There's no such thing as a good slave owner. No such thing. I get the question so often. I think a lot. Why am I getting this question? Why is this question coming? And I think that sometimes when people ask that question, maybe what they're asking is, was this a nicer place, a kinder place, a different kind of place to be a slave because Jefferson was the owner? And this place is so well documented, I can answer that question with confidence. The answer to that question is no. It wasn't nicer because Jefferson owned it. It was typical. It was a typical place at its time. No better, no different, just because Jefferson happened to be the owner. Of course, all the land tended to by the enslaved, including one person in particular. His name was Wormley Hughes. He was the grandson of Elizabeth Hemings, who was born right here on this mountain, and he is often referred to as the head enslaved gardener at Monticello. And so you look at Jefferson's correspondence, especially when he's serving as president and he's writing all these instructions home, and these letters are full of references to Wormley Hughes. Wormley Hughes will do this. Tell Wormley Hughes to do that. He knows how to do this, that, and the other. And he also is responsible for the beautiful ornamental garden on the west lawn. He worked on that quite a bit. And in 1809, that was the first year that the terrace was ready for planting, and Jefferson writes the instructions, send Wormley Hughes to the nearby town of Milton to get manure. They need a lot of manure to prepare the garden. Milton is 4 miles away, and the roads were really rough, and it took 70 wagon loads of manure to prepare the garden. And you think about, okay, here's Wormley Hughes. He's on this wagon 70 times, back and forth. Did he think about just keep going, just leave? I don't know if he thought, I don't know, I can't speak for what he thought, but what I can tell you is he did come back. And I can also tell you, waiting back here, his wife and 13 children. 13 children were here. Lots of reasons to come back. Let's head over this way. And to give you an idea of the scale, during Jefferson's retirement years, right, his last 17 years of his life, and he's here, and things are kind of slowing down, right? And we've got a 5,000-acre plantation and 130 slaves right down the street, 2¼ miles. James Monroe's plantation, 3,000 acres, working plantation, 30 slaves. Okay? Gives you an idea of Jefferson's commitment, how deep in he was. Look at the way he designs the house, right? So it sits on top of the mountain. And when you approach that house from the east, that's nice, but you don't see underneath the house, right? Where the laundry, the kitchen, the smokehouse, all the work that gets done, it's completely out of sight when the visitors come in. And when the visitors would enter through the east front, they wouldn't see Mulberry Row either. And Jefferson, he does a tremendous amount of entertaining on the west lawn. It's like his outdoor living room. You see nothing. And that's not by accident. That happened by design. You can look at what Jefferson wrote. He wrote a lot about slavery. One of the things he said was that slavery was like trying to hold a wolf by the ear, that you could neither safely hold him nor let him go. On one scale, justice. On the other scale, self-preservation. He said he trembled for his country when he reflected, God is just. Justice will not sleep forever. He knew this whole thing was going to enjoy. Very important here, grave sites. Right? You go right down this road, right over the crest, you're going to run into where Jefferson's buried and white descendants are buried. And if you don't want to walk down there, but when the shuttle bus takes you down to the visitor center, they're going to stop and you can see. Fancy, right? Gravestones, wrought iron fence. Now, across from the visitor center, in between the parking tiers, there's a grassy area with a split rail fence. This is a graveyard for the enslaved. We believe 40 people are buried there. There's no grave, there's no stones, nothing. Pretty different graveyards. I mean, can they be more different? They're so connected. The people in those two graveyards, they're so connected. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, he gives us a quote about it. He said that when you put a chain around the neck of a slave, the other end is around yours. The people in those graveyards, they're never going to be separate. They're always connected. In 2001, we did a special ceremony at the gravesite for the enslaved, and Julian Bond, he was the director of the NAACP. We just lost him the other year, but he gave a presentation. And during the presentation, what he said was, the enslaved were buried as property, but we honor them as people. That's what these tours are all about. We honor and we remember the most of the people who lived and worked here. And I want to thank everybody.
They want the video equipment. They just want the songs.
So like Thomas Jefferson's wine collection is like a thing, right?
I think so.
And the Koch brothers, there are three of them. Two of them are in power. They're using Thomas Jefferson's wine.
Really?
Yeah. Well, they collect like all sorts of weird stuff. Like,